Hello YouTube, welcome to Monday's edition of The Breakfast Club. Got that funk here, thanks for joining me. And this is going to be one of 3 videos posted on this channel today. This is my wrap up for my round robin from last week. Brock Lawley is going to guest host for us and introduce a new topic for a round robin discussion, and that will be up as soon as I finish loading this video. And then of course I'll have my video response to Brock, which I'll wait for a while after Brock's video goes up before I post, but it'll probably go up before I go to work in the morning tomorrow. I want to thank the other hosts on the Breakfast Club who answered my round robin questions. I had a series of 7 questions which people could choose from to answer. The gals on the Breakfast Club didn't get to post videos last week. Sister Danger just turned out to be too busy from work, and JJ Talks tried to post a video. Unfortunately, it seems the microphone on her laptop is fucked, and you couldn't hear a word that she said. I'm not even sure if she's going to be able to post a video this week. Whether she gets that resolved or not, we'll see. Anyway, so yeah, I want to thank obviously Kazoom and Serious Mind and Sword Sage and Nathan Brendan Masters for their videos. And it's interesting that everybody decided to share an epiphany story. And I myself have had so many epiphanies that I couldn't really count them all without having to really think hard about it. I was doing exactly that, and I just got to the point where I'm just like, well, this is impossible. So choosing a story to tell is a little bit of a challenge, but so I think the easiest thing to do, even though I have told this story on my own channel years and years ago, it's so long ago I don't really think anybody will be watching this video who watched that video. And this epiphany is the first epiphany I ever had. Now I don't remember if I was 10 or 11, but it's around about that time in my life. And where I grew up in rural California, my family has lived for approximately 100 and some odd years. And so as a result of that, there's a lot of cousins around where I come from. And one Easter, my grandparents were throwing a big feast for the extended family. And my grandparents had like a 18-room house in the forest. And so us kids were all sequestered downstairs, and the adults were upstairs doing their adult thing in the main part of the house. And there's like game rooms and a dance hall downstairs and a few bedrooms and stuff. And anyways, in my family, among my siblings, I'm the oldest. I've got a younger sister and a younger brother. And my sister's 1 year younger than me, so she would have been 9 or 10 at this time. And my brother's 8 years younger than me. Anyway, some of the cousins were older than us, and some of them were our age, and some of them were younger than us. There was, I don't know, something close to 20 kids running around, picking on each other and getting into mischief and that kind of thing. And my sister said something that really humiliated me in front of my older cousins. So much so that I ran out of the room and I started crying, and I literally went into one of the downstairs bedrooms and curled up in the corner and cried. And I cried and cried and cried, and I couldn't stop myself from crying, and I could not face going back out there and seeing everyone's face, knowing that I had been gone crying as well, made it even more humiliating. And so I stayed in there for a long time, and time for the meal came around, and my granddad came downstairs to find me and found me in the corner crying. He said, "Paul, what's wrong?" And I told him what my sister had said and how it made me feel and everything like that. And my grandfather said, without a mocking tone in his voice at all, he said, "Paul, by the time you get to be my age, a lot of worse things than that are going to happen to you. Come on, it's time to eat." And he walked out. He didn't wait to see my reaction or anything. And I only wish I could appropriately describe what happened to me in that moment. Had he said that at a different time in my life, it might not have made the impact. Or had someone else said that and not him, it might not have made the impact. But because he was such an important person in my life and he said that particular thing in that particular moment, I had this, it's like a light came on in my head. And people say the scales fell from their eyes. I mean, I felt like I had this like kind of gentle eruption, this fountain of cascading realizations just coming into my head. It's just like, yeah, he's right. If I let something someone says ruin my day, I'm going to be unhappy for the rest of my life. And I've always been prone to feeling sorry for myself, but before this epiphany happened, I think it would have been my destiny to be just a pathetic person who felt sorry for himself about everything, and couldn't really be optimistic about anything because life kind of sucks and people are kind of shit, and that was sort of where I was at in my head around that particular point in my life, for a variety of reasons that don't need to be gone into. But I had this like revelation where it's like, if you're going to give someone that much power over you that they can ruin your day with a sentence, you've got no power. You've got nothing. You can't do that to yourself. You can't let other people take away your happiness just because they can. And even at the age I was at, I was thinking, of course you can't. Nobody's perfect. You can't be impervious to getting hurt. But what you can do is you don't have to carry it around. You don't have to let it burden you. You can take the pain and wait for it to go away. I had so many thoughts. I can't possibly get them all out in one sentence or one paragraph even. But I had this massive cascade of thoughts. And as a grown-up looking back on this experience, I can interpret it even more profoundly than I did at the time. But it was the most profound revelation that I ever had amongst the epiphanies that I've had in my life, specifically because I was so young. It definitely changed my outlook on life. I can never go back to being that sort of pessimist. I can never go back. I value my happiness, and I want to have the maximum amount of control over that is possible. And I'm so privileged to be in a position, I live in a society that is more or less safe, and I have the ability to prosper to a certain degree. I have the privilege of seeking happiness and trying to make it on my own terms. And to squander that, to give the power to take that away to somebody else, isn't taking responsibility for your own life. And it isn't, and if your life isn't your responsibility, whose is it? Thoughts like this, like I say, it wasn't just the epiphany at the time. It's everything that I've learned upon reflecting on how profound it was and what it actually means to take responsibility for your own happiness and to value your own happiness and to try to realize it. Accepting, of course, that nobody's impervious, nobody's perfect, nobody is immune to emotional pain, least of all me. But even when I'm sad, I don't really let it encumber my overall general happiness. I'm extremely glad to be alive. I cherish every breath I take and every relationship that I make, and I absolutely love this life. And I thank my grandfather to a pretty large degree for planting that seed and letting it sort of sprout the way it did, in my head. Anyway, that went on way too long. Sword Sage talked about one of the most reckless things that he did in his life, and I can tell that story pretty short. But to give it some context, I need to tell another little mini story before that. For a little while, as a young man, I was a volunteer fireman in my local community. And because my dad was a fire chief, we were always the first people to arrive at virtually any call, whether it was a fire or an accident or someone in trouble in the river or whatever. So that being the case, I was exposed to an awful lot of gore when it comes to automobile accidents as a very young man, as a teenager. And when I was 16, there was an accident on the corner just right by our house. I heard it happen, and I run into the room in my fireman gear to the living room. I was supposed to be in bed. My dad's like, "What are you doing up?" And I saw I had my gear on. He's like, "What's wrong?" I said, "Dad, there was an accident on the corner." We get down there. It was a 3-car accident. One of the cars was an MG Midget with no top on it. And the occupants of that car were young adults, a male and a female. And they had a pickup truck literally run right over the top of them. And they were fucked. And both of them had a beer in between their legs. I was tasked with holding traction on the woman, and my friend Donnie, who was also a fireman who also lived right across the street, held traction on the fella while the more experienced guys got the people out of the truck, which was looking like it might blow up at any minute, and so on. Anyways, while I was holding traction on this woman from behind, you sort of have your hands on someone's neck and you're holding their head straight. I felt the pulse in her neck just go away. and I'm crying out to the EMTs on the squad. I'm like, guys, I think she's dying. I think she's dead. And they're like, Paul, just hold traction on her. We'll get to her when you can. And so I held traction on her for half an hour, which was incredibly difficult because part of her face had been pulverized by the impact. But yeah, she died in my hands. I was 16. And they had beers between their legs, and that was always stuck with me. And I vowed in that moment never to drive intoxicated. And I'm ashamed to say that on 3 occasions I drove drunk. And one time in particular, when I was living in Santa Rosa, after I moved back from Alaska, I was driving my Audi through town, running red lights and getting sideways around corners, and I absolutely can't believe I didn't get pulled over. I can't believe I didn't hit anything. I can't believe nobody got hurt. Pure luck, if you want to call it that. It was incredibly irresponsible. It was incredibly reckless, especially considered all the accidents I've witnessed, the number of fatalities that I've seen as a result of drunk driving with my own 2 eyes. Ought to have been enough, I think, to prevent me from ever doing that. But on 3 occasions, I did, and I'm ashamed of each time. So yeah, that's my story about the most reckless thing I've ever done. And Joe touched on one as well, not the most reckless thing he's ever done, but the worst thing he's ever done. And he talked about a story dealing with some guilt he felt about being cruel to his grandmother. And Joe, you know, obviously you don't need any absolution from me. At all. That's not what I mean when I say this, but you need to let yourself off the hook, buddy, as far as it goes, because, you know, we are all human beings. We are all entitled to our emotions, even when they're wrong. You can't help it sometimes. That's just the way you feel. If emotions weren't so powerful that they could overtake thought, we wouldn't be able to enjoy certain things. So that's the price we pay for having emotions. It's the price we pay for being sensitive and deep human beings. It's my experience that those of us who are emotionally sensitive and can feel the deepest are also the ones who inflict the most pain. I'm certainly not immune to having hurt people in my life, even recently, much to my regret. But, you know, like I say, none of us are perfect. And getting back to what I said at the beginning about my epiphany, you can't let the negative parts in life get you down too much. All we can really do as human beings, in my opinion, is to strive to survive and thrive without letting that shit get to us. And the only way you can do that is to strive to make sure that your good moments outweigh the bad ones, that your good intentions outweigh the bad ones, that your good behavior outweighs your bad behavior, that the joy you bring outweighs the sadness that you inflict. And to a pretty large degree, those things are within our control. And believing that is the only way that I can get through living. I want to thank you guys for watching this video. Right after I post this one, I'm going to post the one from Brock Lawley, and I look forward to seeing what all my other Breakfast Club hosts have to say about his proposition. It's a doozy, and my response will be up about 12 hours later. All right, thanks for watching this video. I look forward to what you have to say in the comments section, and I'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.